survive the first. Excellent. I see Lisa's hand up. How many people are on opening day and are starting classes on Monday? Do we have quite a few of those? I see Nikki's hand. Excellent. So we thought today would be a great day to bring everybody together. So we appreciate you guys taking your time to be here. And with that, I will hand it over to Rachel.
Hello, everybody. How are you? I just realized most of you are not going to answer because you're all on mute. I hope you're doing well. You can give me a thumbs up or anyways.
No news is good news, Rachel.
There we go. We'll just go with that.
Hey, it's Friday.
It's Friday.
Rachel, do we want people to intro in the chat?
Yeah, why don't you take a second, introduce yourself in the chat. That's a great idea. Thank you. So we're going to spend a lot of time today doing what is needed still. Renee's going to give us an update into what's been happening with we're going to be able to spend together talking with one another, sharing, strategizing, all those wonderful things. So I'm going to kick things off with talking about classes and really having
I need some help with the Zoom.
And Rachel, your internet's a little unstable. You're pausing.
What can we help you with?
So you might want to turn your camera off, Rachel, because is everyone hearing that?
Yeah, I
can't. Internet is
voice
unstable.
is after her face. Yeah.
I had pictures. There are pictures here, so the rest was like.
Doing better now?
I made it big. I took their pictures away.
Yeah. Let's have everybody. I'll mute everybody for right this second.
Can I do escape?
There. And we mute everybody, and maybe that will help too. Is that better? Okay. So we're going to spend a lot of time today brainstorming, supporting one another, talking with one another, sharing ideas, and figuring out where we need to go next. So I get the honor of talking about our classes and preparing for what we've been doing to get ourselves ready for the start of the semester. So I just wanted to put a couple of ideas out or questions out and just open it up. So how are you working to prepare your classes? And how are you using your classes to kind of support the students in the world that we're in now? So with like COVID, with the Black Lives Matter movement, with what else do we have going on in our world? An upcoming election, and what do you need? So let's open it up and just give us time to start talking about that.
I would like to add for the Northern California folks on the call, and I see quite a few, that we're dealing with pretty significant evacuations.
The fires.
Fires, and some of our colleges have been impacted in that they're either sheltering evacuees, as in Cabrillo College, which is in Santa Cruz, or colleges have heard from students who have been evacuated and can't continue. So as if we didn't have enough to deal with, there's this rocky start to an already rocky semester, especially in the north.
Since we're in the southeastern side, we've actually been affected by the hurricanes out in the south. We half of our town and half of the Eastern Sierras have no internet right now. AT&T is completely down. So on top of everything else, we're also having, and then I think one of we only have one cable that comes into our community, and I think that cable was cut by workers, so it'll be down for a few days. So on top of everything else, first week of school, we had no internet.
So in those situations with the evacuations or with the hurricanes where you don't have any internet, how are your faculty coping with these situations? What are they looking for? What are they doing? How are the students
We didn't drop students. Basically, we usually do the first day drop for, you know, whatever it's called. We didn't drop students. We're just kind of going with the flow. We have limited phone service even. We were able to get on a Zoom meeting yesterday, the Academic Senate was, and so we were able to talk through some of the issues, but it's just about being flexible with everything else going on. Luckily, everything has been delayed anyway, so drop dates are delayed, everything is delayed, so.
Thank you, Lisa.
I'm not teaching right now, but just honestly being an employee and being a worker while having your children out in this other virtual environment is really surreal. And so I think in addition to the support we need to provide each other in the professional workplace, I think honestly right now is a time where we just need to like really, we always talk about wraparound services for our students. We need to wraparound services for us right now, you guys. And so I think even within this context and within our community of practice, of course, by all means, we want to be talking about our experience with our students in early childhood, but please feel free to share if there's other things going on as well. I just know my two 13-year-olds started dual enrollment last week, and it's been a fascinating process starting high school and then a week later starting college. And so my biggest thing right now is we need to give a lot of grace to everybody, and especially for anybody who has the fires or who has technology issues or anything else on top of what's already a very heavy and cumbersome load. I think right now we can just be modeling grace and kindness and inclusivity and just really coming together. And so I just appreciate everybody taking their time out to be together today. And please know, as you are running into more challenges, our community of practice is committed to being a group that is going to take action. So we want to hear, what other gaps are you finding? What other ways can we be a resource? What other ways can we strategically work together right now? So thank you everybody for being here. Who else would like to share?
Go ahead, Peggy.
Hi. We started this week on Monday, and I'm on reduced load because I'm in phased in retirement. Thank God, because I'm not to take on the full load would probably, you know, be very hard for me. But meeting my students finally, I'm doing a synchronous Zoom as well as asynchronous things. And I was just having a hell of a time getting in the spirit. You know, I love the fall semester. I love the beginning of every semester because the students are also, yeah, we can do this. And I get my energy in the classroom from my students. So I was just having a bugger of a time, you know, constructing my canvas, and just, it was all drudgery. And then I met them, and I have 39 in a child development class, so it's kind of big, but it really was good for my spirit, and they like came together as a group. I've been watching the discussions between them as they're introducing each other, and you know, it's amazing to me that we were able to start a community so quickly. And maybe that's because we're all so starved for community. But
Peg,
so I'm feeling better.
Because I think people are starved. I think people are starved for peace, like inner peace. They're starved for connectivity. So the fact that you had a community instantly, what a beautiful, I'm getting chills just saying it. What a beautiful outcome of a very hard situation. And I hope you celebrate that with your students. I hope you label it for them. I hope you talk to them about the intention of how quickly a community can come together, and how when times are hard, you know, we always talk about Mr. Rogers, find the helpers. We're the helpers. So we've got to be together. And I just love that you shared that right now, because those are, and the fact that you said it was good for my spirit, because we are the people who are caretakers. So how do we take care of ourselves? You know, so wonderful that your bucket was filled that day, because we need some filling.
Echoing a little bit what you were saying before. So one of the students said to me, you know, what's the college's position on like when we have power outages and fires and things like that? And I said to her, you know what the college's position is? They've told us be kind and be flexible. And that's true. I mean, that's what's coming down from the top. And, you know, there's no one size fits all. Like Kathy said, in Northern California, we got folks with power, without power, evacuated, on evacuation warning, not being able to breathe because of the smoke. So there's no one size fits all. So that be kind, be flexible. I think, Rachel, that maybe that's what something you had said is, and you could just sort of see people just go, you know, but it's one less thing to figure out what's the policy and what do I have to do.
Right.
No, it's interesting,
It's so
Peggy,
funny.
that you talk about that because we're in our second week now of instruction. And we were really, our district, we're a 3-college district, and we made the decision back in April that we were going to go fully online for summer and into fall. And so we've had some time to get prepared. You're never prepared enough, but kind of get prepared and start to adjust. Even so, we were really encouraged to keep all our classes asynchronous so that students would have the maximum flexibility to cope with COVID, work, family, all of the chaos that they're experiencing. So when I started my principals class, you know, that principles and practices class, so it's a class of 35 people and they're new. I had an orientation in the evening thinking, well, I'll just do that one thing. And maybe they'll come and maybe they won't. They were all there, so I had 2 screens worth of people. And it was great. You know how that is. We all teach them. I've got people that say, this is my first class I've ever taken in college in my life. And then you have people, I haven't been in college for 30 years, and everybody in between. I love it. So I'm just like you, Peggy. I get my energy from that. But then when I said to them, and we talked about the course a lot, they, like 20 of them immediately started getting into the chat. Aren't we going to keep doing this? Aren't we going to keep doing this? So it's like now I said, well, how about this? We're going to be meeting on Monday and Wednesday. Why don't we meet on a Monday morning, but let's keep the Wednesday. So we're going to alternate and try something in September that goes Monday morning, Wednesday night, Monday morning, Wednesday night. Let's just see how that works. But they are, you know, I said, well, how many of you, you know, I don't want to, you know, make your lives difficult. It's like 25 hands were like this on the screen. Like we really would like some more connection than, and it's like, hey, okay, let's make this work. I like it.
Kind of reminds me of the communities of practice because, you know, we started out with the 1 and then we created the EDU one, and then they were supposed to be like a 3-meeting deal. And now we're like literally looking at what does the whole year look like and beyond, because I think the community we've created is unique and it's a great time to be together. So why would we stop? You know?
So it's important I think it's important what Kate said about this. There's a pressure to be asynchronous. The definition of distance ed is, in some people's minds, asynchronous, and that's not what works for my students. And I did a survey this summer of everyone who took classes in the spring or was already registered for the fall. And I asked the question, are you more, you know, like how likely are you to take classes if there's synchronous meetings? And how likely are you to take classes if there's no synchronous meetings? And I did it in English and in Spanish. And there were more, I was impressed that a lot of them didn't just say, no way, I'm not going to do it. But the difference was significant between the people who said, I would be less likely if there's no synchronous meetings to take the classes online. So some of ours are totally asynchronous because it's a faculty choice, but there's a lot of pressure coming down about DE is asynchronous. And if anybody in this group can help me out, I'm on the academic senate too. And there's a big, we got to clarify this, you know, is it supposed to be all asynchronous or not? And I don't think it is, but I need some help.
I think, Peggy, what you have stated and what Kate has stated are it's such important insight for us, because I think the idea that we need to be asynchronous is a very antiquated thought process based on how we've dealt with classes in the past, how education has always been. And I think our students are proving to us, just as we know in early childhood education, children are so capable, and we don't give our faculty members and our students enough credit for their abilities. And I think oftentimes when we go into those meetings to make these decisions, they're based on fear, the fear of the unknown. And giving information, sharing experiences like the experience you just shared is what is going to help others realize the capabilities that are out there and move away from that antiquated type of thinking thought process.
So we have Joni, I think, wanted to say something, and then we have Nadia. I hope I said your name correctly. So Joni, did you want to chime in?
Yeah, I did. So one of the things I have found is that the students that are definitely involved in going into early childhood or are already in the field, they want synchronous meetings and times with each other. I also teach an undergrad class as a prereq into our master's degree programs. And so what I did was I planned 6 synchronous meetings for us to meet together, because it's a class of 35 students. And on our first class, I polled them on Zoom to ask them, is 6 classes enough? Is it too much? Is it not enough? And I wanted to get a sense of where they were with it. And it was interesting because about 90% said it was just the right amount. They felt that it was enough. But what I'm doing in addition to it, though, is every week that we would normally be meeting if we were face-to-face, I'm on Zoom. I'm available, it's open, they can drop in, they can come see me. The other thing that I decided to do was to create kind of a community of us, to create kind of a support community, so students who would like more contact, but not in an academic way where there are any requirements put on them, but just simply, let's come together, let's talk about the issues, let's talk about the content and so forth, let's support each other. They really were very open to that. That seemed to be something that was a nice blend and compromise for them. I guess I'm just a little worried about, I don't teach practicum in the fall, but in the spring. And so I'm trying to think forward, if we are still in an online way, you know, how I'm going to do this to make it meaningful for the students. So that's why I'm here. And hi, everybody.
And then we had, I saw Nadia. Please tell me if I'm saying your name.
You are
right.
saying it correctly. Yeah, Nadia.
Okay.
Yes, thanks, Rachel. So I wanted to just say, so we've started at Las Positas, we started on the 17th. And I don't know, I feel like I have a couple of different reflections. So one is that I've been teaching online for quite a while. This is actually the first time that I've taught online with a synchronous component. And I'm only doing that for one of my classes. But what is interesting is that I'm realizing that I just need to be way, way, way more detailed than I thought I needed to be. And over the years of teaching online, I mean, I've been teaching maybe probably 7 years online, and my students generally feel like I give good directions and feedback and all of that stuff. But this semester, just by the sheer volume of emails of people going, wait, what are we supposed to do? How do we, you know, I'm like, okay, I clearly need to explain things in a much different way than, because everyone's has to be online rather than just, and so some people are kind of used to that format, right? So that's just kind of a sort of a reflection for those of you who are still planning, that it may be that some things that I thought I had already figured out how to explain well without talking to people first, I still have some room to grow. The other thing is, yeah, and I do video instructions too to some things, and I'm starting to embed those instructions into, okay, here's what I really meant when I said that, you know. So that's one thing. The other thing is, I have to have my first draft of spring in next week. So we're already planning for spring. We have been told to assume that our spring is going to be like our fall. So that's what we're planning for. Our college is, we have, to answer what Peggy and some other folks were asking, we do have options. We have an option to do it completely DE. We have an option to do it like once a week, plus the rest asynchronous. We have, you know, for certain categories, you can do once a week, and then on campus, you know, so they're trying to provide us with a lot of flexibility. One of the things that I noticed though, is one, we had students, I have students who really want to be online. I mean, I'm sorry, who want to meet, but just really can't. I have a lot of students who have children, young children actually in the home. And so they actually, I had a class, I was going to do the Teaching in Diverse Society class, and I was going to do it 3 hours a week. And I ended up like literally right before school started having to change that because I found out I was going to be home with my daughter, and I'm like, there's no way I can do a 3 hour at once. And I emailed the students, and like half of the class was like, oh my gosh, thank you. I couldn't figure out how I was going to do that class. I thought I was going to have to drop it. And so I was just thinking, you know, one of the challenges for me as the person who's kind of scheduling classes is everything's so up in the air, right? And so students, I don't have, once I set it in stone, then we don't have any flexibility other than just my own, like, oh, hey, I'm happy to meet with you all once a week if you want to. But there's not, I can't say, oh, it turns out that actually more students want to be synchronous. Let me change that, because the school, my college anyway, is very much like they signed up for what they signed up for. You can't switch it in the middle. You can't force, you know. And then the last thing I'll say, because I know there's lots of other people on the call, is just as a human being, I am kind of struggling between like focusing on my job and focusing on my child, and trying to, you know, figure out, you know, I think I work better mentally between like 10 and 4 during the day, but from like 9 to 2:30, I'm with my daughter. And so then afternoon meetings start. And so like, I feel like a lot of my time when I would feel really creative and able to, you know, connect with the students is sort of gone. And I think my students are challenged by that. And I also just would say that when I'm thinking about planning, it happens to be that the 2 full-time faculty in our program, I have 2 children and my faculty member has 4 young children. And so we're trying to balance, like, what is our life? What are our students' lives? And what, you know, how do we move forward with this? So that's my super long check-in, sorry.
Nadia, thank you so much. I think that you're really expressing a lot of what so many of us are going through. I know we just turned in our schedule yesterday, and having those conversations and looking at what did students actually sign up for. So for us, we did surveys early on that said we want to be able to meet via Zoom, but when it came time to sign up, that's not what happened. People went straight to the ones where they did not have to be there because of the things like job situations or making sure their children were taken care of and on their Zoom meetings and all of those sorts of things. And I just appreciate the fact that you've put voice to what a lot of us are experiencing right now and trying to make best decisions for our departments. Which, you know, brings us to, you know, we all are needing things. We're needing information. We're needing time. We're needing, as Renee said, grace. I could try to provide, I can't provide you time. I can definitely provide you grace though. What else, what other things are you finding that you need? So we're just going to move in a little bit to another portion of this conversation. What are you finding as you are getting ready to start classes or have just started classes? Additional resources that you're finding that, oh, I hadn't even thought about that. Like for me, honest to goodness, the fact that I can see everybody here moving and talking is like the biggest deal for me, because all week long, I mean, I have been in tears literally since last Friday because my internet was not working the way it needed to, and the Zoom meetings were terrible, and I couldn't, like, academic senate meeting, like I couldn't hear what they were actually saying. I was praying and thankful that my class that I did have was fine on Wednesday. But the fact that I've got technology like figured out now with my router is amazing. So even those kinds of small things that we didn't really expect that that we would need help with or support with, and the things that you're hearing on the ground in your communities, concerns with, are children going to be able to be back in their programs? Are they not going to be back in the programs? News, I'm watching chat a little bit, some of the conversation there. What do the lab schools look like if they've closed? Are they thinking about reopening? What are the concerns of your parents? Just because I know that we are all hearing these things from our constituents, from our students. So just a time for us to support one another in the things that we are being given.
And Kathy was just asking about those who are doing fully online practicums without in-person fieldwork, if they'd share what they're doing.
I'll start on that. I'm in my first week. I have 3 sections of 20 students each for my practicum class. So I have actually 62 students. I'm hoping some will drop. And I have 10 at the end of this first week already placed with practicum instructors. And so it's actually been really interesting. I have a student in Sweden and another student in the Philippines and a couple of other students in other countries that I can't think of right now. Oh, one is in Ethiopia, of all places. And so they're having the same issues in those countries as they are here, with the added issue of how do I have to confirm that they're master teacher qualified still, because these people do want to come back to California eventually. They're mostly military people. And so all of my placements are supposed to be virtual, except for the girl in Sweden. Her placement, they are allowing her to do it in person. I guess it's a smaller class. They only have 8 children, and it's a different type of a setting in Sweden. They have a different educational system than we have. But so far, what I've been doing is I'm allowing students to complete their practicum class if they're working in the classroom that they're working in, but they have to have a master teacher or a cooperating teacher who is not at their work site, because we don't allow workplace. It's a conflict of interest. That's something we decided on when we first started doing online practicum classes. So I'm matching them up with other people other cooperating teachers I've worked with if they can't find somebody who will mentor them in their placement site. But it'll be more of that mentoring. I'm hoping that Zoom, that the requirements are 48 hours. They have to complete 48 hours, the cooperating teacher, because it's a 1 unit of practicum. And the language of it is that they have to be observed interacting with children. So as long as they're observed in some capacity interacting with children, then my needs have been met in terms of what's required by the state. So it can be virtual interactions with children. I'm fine with that. So I've got some who are teaching and have a mentor assigned to them who are mentoring them in their own classroom space. And I've got some who've never worked who are doing the virtual stuff with other people. I have 2 family childcare centers who are pairing up, and they're running their virtual program together because they are in the same community. So that's kind of exciting. But really, I'm dealing with everybody on an individual basis. So the fact that I've got through 10 of them this first week is amazing, because it's so time consuming to make sure everything is, copacetic and working out. But it's actually pretty exciting. My students seem to be pretty excited about it.
That's wonderful. Thank you, Lisa. Who else?
So in the chat box, there's a question that said, could you please mention who they're observed by, please?
Lisa, I think
I was actually responding in writing, but it just says that it doesn't specify who observes them. That's why we've been able to do the online practicum. The supervisor, the classroom instructor, does not have to observe the student interacting with children. Just somebody does. So the cooperating teacher is the one who observes the student interacting with children. in my practicum placements.
And I just saw Patricia, Jody, and Kathy had hands up to
Hi,
share.
yes. I actually, I wanted to speak to, because people are making schedules already for spring, the whole thing about face-to-face or partial hybrid. I think, Rachel, you're the one who suggested this, and I've passed that on to our department, that if you have an asynchronous class, you can put a Zoom meeting in there as a choice and another assignment. That way, if someone said, I only signed up for online only, and you're asking me to come to a Zoom, they have another option. Most of them wanted the Zooms. They've asked for Zoom, but you can't force someone to come. So that would be a way to handle it. And the other way is to put in your scheduling for the spring, a hybrid, which our district has an option to do that. It can be all asynchronous, all synchronous, or hybrid. As far as the practicum go, we're starting next week, and we have 32 students, and it's a challenge. It's a challenge to be sure that they're going to be supervised. Some of the teachers will probably supervise some of the activities, maybe via a video that they produce. That's what we did at the end of last semester. They sent us videos of them doing their activity from beginning, through implementation, through closure. And then we also did something where we shared in small groups a few of the activities, so we could see them reading a story, for example, and others could observe. So we're all in a tricky situation, but it's interesting to hear what everyone else has to say. But I do think the idea about giving them a Zoom option for those who would have not gone online had they had a choice. Those who would have gone online had they had a choice, they're fine. But those who would not have, they miss the interpersonal Zoom relationship, I think.
Thank you, Patricia. Jody?
So I teach at Cal State Long Beach, and I'm actually a lecture and a lab instructor for practicum. So the lecture component, I have 3 sections of practicum, which is 125 students, and we're fully online. The lab school is not open. They do not know when they will open. Our alternative site that houses 40 of our practicum students cannot take them because of licensing regulations. They can't take any volunteers. So me and my other people that work through the class, so each one is assigned. I have 2 other people I work with who have lab sections, and we've worked together. We're doing it by video. We're trying to find videos for the students to observe. They're still assigned their micro teaching activities, so they're still doing activities in the developmental areas, but it's going to be more of in writing. And then we're going to try out Flipgrid, and they're going to pick their favorite activity, and they'll have to implement it by Flipgrid, where we gave them an option if they know a child that fits the age range that it's designed for, and they have permission, so hopefully one of their own children, they can use them for the Flipgrid, or they can just do it to the camera. But like someone was saying, we have to give an option if they do not want to videotape themselves, so then they would have to do a very detailed observation of what they would do, and then they can either blur their face or they can turn it in that way. And then we can't, since we are all teaching asynchronous too, we cannot require Zoom meetings, but what the 3 of us have decided is that we're going to offer an alternative or an optional Zoom meeting where we're going to have the lead teachers from the centers that they would have been in do like an hour or an hour and a half long Zoom meeting with topics that the students can submit questions prior. And if we get no questions, we're going to come up with topics so that they can kind of get an idea of what the classroom kind of happenings would go about. And then we've also had the site send us pictures of what the site looks like so they can see what an actual setup classroom would look like to the best of the ability before the lab school was shut down for COVID. So that's kind of what we're doing.
I have a question also.
Angie?
Yeah, I'm from Grossmont College in San Diego, and I do the practicum. And we're just so saddened about what we're going to do in spring, because we usually only offer the practicum in spring, and we place our students either in our lab or with our mentor teachers. And here in San Diego, the majority of our mentor teachers, their sites are not open. And I'm thinking about the equity of it, of when I hear you say that students who are working, well, the majority of our practicum students, a lot of them haven't been working. So they don't have a classroom to be in. And then what saddens me, and I don't know I mean, I'm still struggling with this, is true workforce training. And I'm very concerned about using virtual means to train practicum students to go into the workforce place. Because we all know that watching a video of doing a literacy and say a circle time activity is very different than actually sitting with children on the floor and doing literacy with them. I mean, they're human beings, you know, and they're constantly moving, and how do you engage them? And when do you decide to put that book away and choose another one? And, you know, and you only get that, I think, from real hands-on experience. And our practicum requires 150 hours. So they do 10 hours a week, real life, with real life children. And I think this is a major component that is missing. And we're struggling. We still don't know how we want to replace that and still produce quality workforce people out there.
Angie, I think that, again, you've given voice, as many of us have, to our concern that our students will not get the same kind of hands-on experience with children that is so necessary. And one of the things that has given me a little bit of calm is knowing that, and our students will be in the field for a very long time, hopefully, and that they will get lots of experience with children. And so even though that may be missing for them in the way that we would like for it to be right now, if we can build their confidence and their foundation for when they do have that experience, that's something. It's not enough as far as I'm concerned, but it's something. One of the things that we are doing at our college is, for those who do have work sites, we're allowing them to be placed there. But our lab school is also not open right now, and do not anticipate it being open for spring. We have collaborated with the director and our master teachers to provide a free internet group time service for preschool age children. And we build in the opportunity for our students to do STEM activities and to do flannel boards and to do story times, all those sorts of things that they may normally implement in a classroom, and figure out ways to do it virtually. And I will tell you, the first day this week that we did this with students, the master teacher and I were texting back and forth going, I'm so nervous. I'm so nervous. I don't know if this is going to work. I don't know if this is going to work. But after just this week, what I found was that it opened up this huge opportunity to start looking at skills that, yes, we pay attention to normally, but in a very, very different way, because it's so visual for our students. So we talk about how do you engage children? You know, you really have to be on it to engage, 23-year-olds or 24-year-olds who are with you for a little bit of time. So I'm trying to come at it from a very positive, this is a way that we, a strengths-based, this is an opportunity for us to grow in ways that we might not otherwise. So when you talk about behavior management and you are physically there to kind of corral children and move your bodies, you can't do that in this situation. So what other skills are you going to create that you're going to learn, that you're going to develop, that you're going to have in your toolbox for later on? So, I mean, I'm sorry, that was really, really long-winded, because I know that is such a hard concern for all of us.
No, I totally get it. And I understand that we're all kind of in this situation. And, and I also have a fear that, with the changes that we're making to adapt to this pandemic, is that I'm afraid, I don't want our community colleges to think that we can do a child development degree all online. That so takes away from, I think the majority of our classes at our campus, you have to go into a center or a lab school to do activities, the language and lit, the art, the music, the STEM, all of those classes, you have to interact with the children. That's why we have the lab school. And our lab school is open, but of course, according to the guidelines that came out, they cannot have visitors, so.
My lab school is open too, and earlier in the summer, there was a mention of something called Swivel. And so my college, my administrators have been fully supportive, which is why I've got the 3 sections. And so we actually bought Swivel. And so all of our equipment and everything should arrive in the next couple of weeks. So my lab school is open. I've got my program manager and my teachers on board. And so I'm hoping that I will be able to hook up my students who can't find placements with my Swivel teachers in my lab school, and that will be part of their virtual placements. The only issue I'm having is I've done the Canvas Studio training, and I've got other things that I'm doing, but I'm 50 years old. This is all like technology after my time. And so I don't know how much I want to invest in learning how to do Swivel and Canvas Studio. That's where I start getting overwhelmed, is like, okay, and you've got 2 weeks because you have to have your placements by week 4 of the semester in order to do the 12 weeks of placement. So it's exciting. I'm sure it'll work fine, but that's where I get blown over.
Lisa, you and I can get together and I'll show you how to swivel up the world. It's real easy.
Oh, good.
Kathy, I know you wanted to say something. Well,
I can do it. Anybody can do it.
Have we done a full Swivel coffee chat? Because maybe that's something, maybe we do a training or another training, you know, if that's something that's needed.
That'd be great.
I just wanted to, while people were talking about practicum, a couple things. One is that at some point we'll post our agenda because some of the items in the chat will be coming up soon, later. But also, Michelle, I'm going to put you on the spot. I see you right in the corner of my computer here. Do we have any updates on the mentor program, which is, you know, for many of us, a key component of practicum and supervision? And any updates, or is it still just...
Wait, Kathy, before we do that, because we do have Michelle, we do have time to talk about the mentor program. Okay. I know Kathy Miller has been waiting to say something. I see Peggy has her hand up.
Okay.
So I don't want to miss them before we change gears. Is that okay?
Also, everybody, I screwed up and said I would put the agenda together, and then I didn't. I went this morning and I saw my mom and I hung out with my 85-year-old mom, and then got to the meeting, was like, where's the agenda? And realized I was supposed to make it. So keeping it real. I apologize.
Okay.
Kathy Miller, wait, you're over here.
All right, first of all, Lisa, I just turned 50 and we got this. So just letting you know, 50 is the new something younger. I don't know. Okay. The one thing I wanted to know is I'm really interested in the virtual classes. Jody was saying that she's got students doing field work virtually through local programs that are doing online preschool. How do you find these programs is my question. All of our existing community partners are not doing this type of thing, so I'm not sure how to find it, but gosh, I'd sure love it. Also, do you do separate sections for groups that are working in their sites, so therefore they have face-to-face contact, and then those who do not? Because otherwise I feel like I have no idea how you could do that. And then is this problematic with regard to hours when they're doing, some are doing it virtually, some are not? How does that work? Maybe this is too much to cover right now, but those are my questions.
Great questions, Kathy. So for those,
I can tell you how we're setting it up. I don't have a difference between those who have virtual placements and those who are able to do in person, or that it's luck of the draw who gets in the classes. But what I do in my classes isn't so reflective of their practicum. And then what was your last question? I forgot it now.
Is it problematic with regard to hours when you have some people face-to-face, virtual, and does it count for the permit?
Yeah, that's actually one thing that I was struggling with, because people who are doing in-person placements, they have kind of, I'm going to say this, but it's not, don't take it the wrong way. They have empty hours, right? They have hours where they're just in the classroom kind of absorbing what they're doing without having to be actively engaged in it. They can sit and observe the kids playing. They can talk to the practicum teacher after they've been there. So their hours count differently than when you're when you're doing a Zoom session. And so that's what I've been struggling with, is how do you count 1 hour face-to-face in a Zoom session engaged with that cooperating teacher for that full hour, with somebody who's spending an hour in a classroom kind of parallel playing with a cooperating teacher and not getting that direct instruction. And so basically, what I've done is my cooperating teachers and my students who are placed, they have to come up with a plan for how they're going to get their 48 hours in the most effective way for them. And I'm gonna go with it. Whatever they choose to do for their 48 hours, I have some minor guidance, but I'm not going to put any restrictions on it. And so how they count an hour is how they count an hour. And so hopefully that'll work and it'll come out about even.
Oh, sorry.
For those work site and virtual placements, for us, we're doing whichever one you're doing is fine, but everybody, 2/3 of your hours go towards whichever type of practicum site, but 1/3 of your hours is based on a mutual assignment where it's about research, it's about reflection, it's about application, about what you're doing as well. So there's also that basis. All right, I think Sheila and Peggy, and I saw Anna too. Let's go in that order. Sheila, are you still on and want to make a comment or have a question? All right, Peggy, would you like to go ahead?
Thanks. This discussion, well, all summer when I've been able to participate has been helpful, but particularly right now. And I have a lot of concerns, you know, in community college, because it's open enrollment. I can't counsel out students in my academic classes. If they can do the work to pass the academic class, even if they should never, ever, ever be with children. And so it's in the practicums where we have the opportunity to really work with temperamental characteristics. And some people, they actually can like, oh, this is what they're really like. So the idea of turning out a workforce that doesn't really know what kids are really like, that have not participated on a teaching team, never seen the dynamics of that. And then reflecting also, Lisa, on what you were saying about the time in a student teacher placement that you spend observing is, I mean, to me, observing is a teaching behavior. And I feel like when we're setting things up that, you know, the teaching behavior is doing the Zoom, the teaching behavior is doing the activity, the teaching behavior is this, we're missing that huge part about the response to children. And I don't think we can change it now. And Renee, I've heard you speak really positively about, hey, these are skills they might need if this world continues the way it is. So I try to keep that in the back of my mind, but I worry about this going into a classroom, never having actually had a live kid come and rub his snot on your shoulder while he's crying, and you're comforting and you're talking through and you're helping to problem solve. You know, there's just no replacement for that. So, I mean, I don't mean to be a Debbie Downer, but
I completely agree with you, Peggy, and I think everybody here completely agrees with that. And you realize that is exactly what happens in many EDU classes. You know, if you are an elementary, middle school, or high school teacher, you can never, ever have had a child in your life in any way, shape, or form, much less be a teacher for them and walk into a classroom the first day of school and have them for the entire year, never having been around children. It is not a good practice. And that is a reality, unfortunately.
There was some,
Diana, can I just real quick on your point? Do you find that people leave the career faster because of not having the prior experience?
Yes.
That's my concern too, is we already have such a high turnover. And if people aren't able to get in and really get a gist of what it feels like in their body, mind, and spirit to be in a classroom, are we setting them up for increased failure, you know, of leaving the field? I don't know.
Yeah.
You know?
It's a great question, Michelle. I don't know, Renee?
Brink of the biggest teacher shortage that we will ever have experienced. I think it is right on the horizon. I think retention right now is going to be, we're in trouble. I'm thrilled that my colleagues that are running credential programs and running early care programs, they say they've got the people in them right now, but I worry about people staying. Another thing, and I just put this in the chat a minute ago, especially with what Peggy was saying, this makes me think about, like, in K-12, you've got your training and then you have your first 2 years of induction. So you are in the classroom and you're simultaneously getting 2 additional years of support and instruction. I almost wonder if, out of necessity due to COVID, we may have to restructure what we're doing in ECE and almost have like an induction period, or whatever we want to call it, where those beginning teachers are continuing to get wraparound services, free training, free workshops, and free one-on-one support to make sure that outside of their classroom context, they've got what they need to be successful within the classroom context. We may have to relook at how we're training right for the next few years and what early childhood looks like, because
then Renee, we're bridging into the TK-12 world where those multiple subject credential candidates have to have anywhere from 300 to 600 hours, depending on what institution they're of student teaching. But then they're in induction where their school district, this is public school, hires them, and that there is someone who is their, coach and their instructional coach that helps them set educational goals, that sees what they're doing, that they have that regular piece. And their public school pays that person. So that person is a beginning teacher, but their coach gets paid and supported to do that.
Just so you know,
like the mentor program does.
One thing to note though, you guys, depending on where the K-12 person is doing induction, that cost is often given to the beginning teacher to pay the it's $2,500 a year for the induction and for those services. So that's whole nother piece of it that we may need to think about. I see the warning, I appreciate that. I know we have more speakers too. With early childhood, making some transitions at Department of Education right now. Make sure it's on your radar, everybody. They're talking about teacher performance assessments. They're talking about doing some alignment to some of the kind of the things that have happened in K-12. It's just something that we need to be aware of because there's changes happening. So let's get ahead of the game. If we're having changes due to COVID, let's line it up. Let's be working together like we're doing. And I think we need this to me just proves the necessity of our group continuing to meet. We need to stay together at least through COVID and maybe beyond.
Renee, we need to make sure that your voice is heard.
Anna.
Hi, can you hear me now?
Yes.
Yeah.
Oh, good. Sorry, had to do it. The conversation has moved quite a ways down the road, but I did want to share something that we're doing at City College in San Francisco. I am the lab school faculty, so we do have 2 sections of supervised field experience going on. I don't teach the actual practicum course, but normally if our lab school was open, which it is not, I have students that would come into the lab school and work with us. So what we're doing at City is, drum roll please, we've actually moved our lab school course onto Canvas. So technically, I'm teaching a non-credit course on Canvas 5 mornings a week. And part of it is there, it's asynchronous. There's assignments and discussion forums and all this, that, and the other. But we're asking students to commit to coming to a live Zoom with me. It is optional, but they've got 5 opportunities a week to at least, come to one of my live 1-hour Zoom sessions to ask questions, to complete, assignments. It's sort of like I'm mentoring them, but, in a live Zoom every week. We don't have mentors that are available, for placement. And we did pilot, and we are allowing people working in licensed facilities in San Francisco to do, count some of their work hours. There's a whole bunch of criterias, what they have to do. But I think this is the most insane thing that I never in my wildest dreams thought I'd be teaching non-credit in Canvas.
Absolutely. Thank you, Sheila. Thank you so much. We're doing something similar. So the work that you're doing with that mentoring is amazing. Thank you for sharing that.
Thank you.
And Anna, thank you for waiting.
You're welcome. Yes, I work at Chabot. Chabot College is in Alameda County. We have several centers open, and we have 2 sections open for practicum. I run one. The cap for the class is 15 students, and the other one is the same 15 students. We both are full. And the criteria for those students is that they have to be working in a licensed place. So all of them are doing their practicum while they are taking the class. So lecture, again, is through Canvas, and we have synchronous meetings on the evenings just to, and it's mainly about reflection, what's going on in the classroom and everything. And for their assignments, they have to videotape themselves, and they're gonna send it to me. I'm going to give them feedback. They sign a contract, and also their supervisor sign a contract. I create a letter for the parents and reassuring them that all the videos are going to be seen only by me, nobody else, just to reassure them and they don't feel anxious. And so I've been receiving all those contracts, and also I have communication directly with their supervisor. So it's me observing them, but at the same time, the supervisor and I, we are working together. Additionally, each of the students need to have an initial meeting with the supervisor to create professional goals. And through the semester, we're going to be revisiting those goals. And at the end of the semester, it's going to be 2 evaluations, one in the beginning and one at the end. So they have to complete 105 lab hours. So yes, I think so. In the beginning, Chabot was a little anxious to really go on board with practicum. But I propose this kind of model for the students because we still have a lot of students who needs this class, and some of them are working. And I know it's not completely equitable because we are just getting students who are currently working. But at the same time, I feel it's really necessary that those students are with children and they are receiving feedback. And the way that they are receiving feedback is through those videos. I mentioned to them that if I am allowed, I might go to visit them at least once, just to see them in action. So that one is the model that, and we know that now on the spring is going to be again online. So we haven't decided if we want to continue with that model for the spring. And this one is this is a trial for us. This is the first time we are experimenting with this. And I'm pretty sure we are going to learn a lot about this experience with the students as well as me as an instructor. And I'm completely new to Canvas, so I have to train myself about everything about Canvas over the summer. So creating the course and transferring online and everything is completely new to me. But I'm really excited. Students are excited. Originally, I had 15 students enrolled and 20 on the waiting list. But after I really clarified with them how we were planning to implement this course, so many of them didn't really qualify. And some of them, they didn't have a license. Some of them were nannies. Some of them lost their jobs. Some of them were doing videos, distant learning. So it was not really the goal for me to teach this class. So that's what we are doing at Chabot.
Anna, thank you so much. And I know that we need to move on to our next agenda item, but as I listened to all of the things that each of you have shared, it is just so overwhelming that we are all in different places with different situations and different personalities that we might have to work with at our colleges, but we are all so focused on what is best for our students right here, right now, for the future, and how are we in our local circumstances going to be able to provide the very best, highest quality experience for them that will really prepare them for the future. Before we move on, I just want to say thank you to each and every one of you for working so hard, being so thoughtful and being diligent about your students and your community, and for now and for the future. Thank you.
So with that being said, we're going to turn it over to Renee for a few minutes, and she's going to give us an update on the advocacy efforts that have been taking place over the summer and now into the fall. And there you go, Renee.
Excellent. So thank you everybody for all your participation with advocacy. I do want to let you know that our letters have gone out, and most recently our white paper has gone out. And so in terms of going out, what we are doing is we have sent all of our documentation to basically 2 people from each system is how we're approaching it. We sent everything to Tony Thurman in K-12 and Sarah Neville Morgan at Department of Ed. We sent everything to Governor Newsom and to also Ben Cheetah from like the governmental side. We sent everything also up to Vice Chancellor Shinny Weber from ARC system, and also Chancellor Eloy Oakley from the community college system. We have also sent the majority of the documents also to Tim White, who is lead of the CSU system, and Marquita has, one of the vice chancellors from CSU, has also received some of the documentation. We have also shared the white paper and the letters of advocacy with the Early Childhood Policy Council and just basically any of the key stakeholders that we can in the state. I do want to let you know that we did hear back from Vice Chancellor Shinny Weber, and it was a great, I was just thankful to get a response, because one of the things with advocacy is sometimes you get responses and sometimes you don't. And so Vice Chancellor Weber wrote back and shared that, explained about how the budget has already gone through for the year. And so that there's, not a lot of financial resources available, but that she would share our work with some other advocates, other vice chancellors that do advocacy and governmental advocacy within the chancellor's office. And so she shared it with them. And I appreciated her email, but I did write back right away. And I said, thank you so much for your response. I would like to point out 2 items where we could use leadership help that have no cost to the community college system. And I talked about the need for having our leadership in the community college system have some discussions with Department of Education and kind of that piece, and also have some discussions about the mentor program and what could be done to advocate and save that program and the necessity for that for us. So I have not heard back yet, but I'm excited, honestly, because anytime you get a chance to kind of go back and forth, that's a time to maybe make some movement. And so I do want to let you know that I had a chance to talk with somebody who I deeply respect from the Community College Foundation about our advocacy efforts earlier this week. And she gave some additional suggestions of groups that we can send it to. And one of the things that she said, which it's like one of those things where sometimes you just go, duh, like you forget. And so it was talking about the education committee and subcommittee. And it was kind of funny because when I looked it up, I was reminded that the head of it, or one of the leads, is Senator Scott Wilk, who is from my community, and I know Scott. And I'm like kicking myself that I didn't send it to him. So please know that I do have some additional people that I will be sending our advocacy efforts to. And if anybody's interested and doesn't have a copy of any pieces, let us know, because we would love to share it with you. I do want to point out that our mentor letter in particular, that advocacy letter, I thought was very powerful, because when you pull up the signatures and you see hundreds and hundreds of us coming together, and most importantly, community college, CSU, UCs, K-12s coming together, I think it's pretty powerful. So while we have not tangibly gotten results yet, I do feel like we are still in a prime good spot. And please know that one of our biggest advocacy pushes right now is to get access to the videos and to, quality footage. And that was something I said, like, this is no cost. We need you to talk to CDE and to Head Start and to these groups so we can keep moving forward with getting this access. So still working on it, but getting a little bit of traction. And please make sure you share our advocacy efforts with everybody you can on your campuses. If you're in with your vice president or your president or your CIO or anybody if you've got an ear, your regional consortium leads, anybody like that, say, hey, I've got a white paper I want to share with you. And if anybody needs the white paper, let me, Rachel, Deanna, Kim, Kathy, any of us on the team know, and we will get it to you. But most importantly, just keep talking, everybody. We have to keep talking and keep advocating. I do believe that we will be in this for a while. And so we see on the chat that somebody said, can you send it out? Absolutely, we can send out the letters and the white paper. I think I won't do it today. I'll wait till Monday so it doesn't get stale in people's emails. But please keep sharing and make sure when you advocate that you give them your contact information if they want additional information. That's really important. I love that I see some people saying, I need the white paper. We will get it to you. Absolutely. And as I said, I'll do it at the start of the week so that way it's not sitting in the email and gets lost in something.
Oh, and we can also include it when we send out the notes from chat for this meeting and then the link for this meeting being posted. Renee, also, will you really briefly talk about the exciting news about NACTEP? I know it's more EDU, but
Yes. Okay, so some of our colleagues who are on the call right now are involved in a group called ACTEP, which is, it's basically like the California Community College, or I should say the full name, the Association of California Community College Teacher Education Programs. And they have a national chapter called NACTEP. And we were actually approached by NACTEP recently because they had heard that we were doing some good works with community of practice. And so they said, hey, we'd like to kind of do a little article on what you guys are doing. And would you be willing to write up, a 200 to 400 word blurb? And I said, absolutely. So I wrote back and said, we've got the EDU COP and we've got the early childhood COP. And I know that NACTEP focuses more on EDU. So I wasn't surprised when they said, please highlight the EDU. But I couldn't not include our ECE faculty website that we've created as a huge resource. And so I made sure I included that within the article as well. And so, and I specifically, they asked me for a headshot, but I specifically said, is there any way that we could take a picture of the EDU Canvas Commons page and use that as the visual? Because we really want to get people going to our faculty, our early childhood faculty website and our EDU faculty Canvas Commons as much as possible, because that's where the resources live. So anyways, we're going to be going out on like a national level in their fall newsletter. So when that comes out, I'll make sure to share it.
thank you, Renee. This is the perfect time. Michelle, did you want to talk a little bit about the mentor program and share anything that you want to share with us?
Sure. Well, first off, I have to let you all know, if it hasn't reached all the masses yet, which it probably hasn't. It's been a weird transition. I am now working as a full-time faculty member at Merritt College in their child development department. So I have chosen to follow a dream of mine to be full-time faculty. And I was working there previously part-time for about the past 5 years. So I applied and here I am. So I'm there now, but that doesn't mean I'm not still a strong advocate for the mentor program. And it actually allows me to be more involved in the advocacy now, since I don't have a position in the project anymore. So that being said, that just happened. So, it's not like you've been out of the loop or anything. It just happened my first week here. So as far as the mentor program, there will be an update coming out next week from Marianne Doan, the director. There was some news simultaneous with my exit, and I don't know if I brought I don't know, a good aura when I left. I don't know what that means, or it's my final fireworks moment. But anyway, some good news will be coming your way about the program, at least for this program year. So I don't want to steal Marianne's thunder, but I just sleep well this weekend knowing that there will be some good news. And I have heard that the advocacy has been going very well, and Linda Lidenbaum is still spearheading that with many of the coordinators, and I'll be joining that team shortly as soon as I, settle in a little bit into this full-time role. As you know, that's a big uptake from taking one class now and transitioning that to 5, and all the myriad of challenges that we are in right now. Onboarding anywhere in the middle of COVID is quite unique. So bear with me on that, but I will be there, and I'm welcome to emails, and I have a great connection with Marianne. We're very good friends, and so I still will probably be in the loop as much as possible. So that's the update on the mentor program.
Thank you so much, Michelle.
Mhm.
And now we're going to, she is off screen though, so we're not going to necessarily transition to Kim just yet until I see her back on screen. Oh, there she is. So we're going to finish off today with a little discussion. We're going to actually at some point break up into small groups after Kim gives a little bit of a idea of what we'll be doing, and then we'll come back as a large group one last time before we call it a day.
Were we going to do the lab discussion?
Oh yes, sorry, I'm so sorry. Ignore what I just said.
I'll be short.
Yes, Kathleen.
Share
We're going to turn it over to Kathleen.
Sorry, can I share screen for a minute?
Yes. Are you able to?
Yep.
Okay.
Thanks. Okay, hi everybody. It's hard without a written agenda to remember what we said we were going to do. So I just want to say, I wanted to spend a few moments talking about lab schools, and I'm showing you a Google Doc, no big deal, just a regular, poorly formatted Google Doc that I did. But we did it in the San Francisco Bay region and just asked some key folks at colleges if they were going to be open in the fall. And you could see when we asked, which was in July, we still had quite a few that said tentative. And so what we are going to be doing is Renee's going to put together a Google Doc kind of crafted out of after this one. And we would like to get more of a statewide perspective from the field around the kind of the status of your lab programs. There's some concern, I guess, in the field that lab schools, many were not able to open this fall, even though they believed that they were going to be. There is concern that spring will also be paused in many areas. Some of this does rely on our local health department and, you know, a range of people above the community college administration. But I would have to say there's also concern that this could be the impetus for scaling back lab schools in general. And we all, those of us that have been around for a number of years, remember that this has happened before, because they tend to be a little, in the CTE world, when you look at labs, sometimes our labs are more expensive than others. That's all I'm going to say. And we don't have equipment costs. We have human staffing costs. So there's sometimes tension at colleges around how large a lab program is. They do provide childcare, but they're also really primarily there for the students to do observations and for instruction and childcare. So I think there's some concern. So it would make sense when we do send the minutes out that we send a Google Doc link. And if we can populate basically just a few questions that I shared. Do you have a lab school? Is it open? Do you plan on having it open in the spring? Feel free to say, I don't know. And then we'll have a column with issues. And the issues would be, the cleaning is too expensive. We haven't had, you know, buy-in from the administration. There's unclear directions. Most certainly in our case at our college, I'm at City College of San Francisco, there was a delay in, from the administration in telling many labs that they were able to open. Some of it was due to the health directives, but others were just, you know, not considering, I guess, some labs a priority. The health labs, the nursing labs were allowed to go forward, and some others were not. So where we sit in the career technical ed world and where our labs sit depends college to college. So we wanted to throw that out. Please just populate, doesn't commit you to anything, but voice your concerns about reopening. Also, another thing to kind of think about is that there are some both local college pots of money, some of it's federal. There's also some strong workforce money from our local regional consortia, and it's very likely there will be additional fund sources to fund modifications to programs, especially career technical ed programs. And what I mean by that is PPE for parents, for children, for staff. Some colleges have put in two-way mirrors so that students can look in, but they're not really in the rooms. Other colleges have said they wanted to get cameras so that students can view live stream instead of, you know, footage that's not live. And so, and also the cleaning supplies and just putting up posters and talking about social distancing at your programs and in your classrooms. So those costs, you may want to be thinking about what you actually need and move those forward both to your administration, but also be ready with a list, because as the money becomes available, they're going to ask for ideas quickly. And most certainly some of this in our region, in the San Francisco Bay region, they have a small COVID fund. We've already put in a request for COVID funding, have not heard back, but, and it's for these kinds of things. The other thing I would think about is, or I would urge you to think about, is the State Chancellor's Office in their Wednesday calls have made it clear almost at every call that what they're prioritizing are fast pivot programs. In other words, can a workforce get retrained or trained in 12 weeks, in 6 weeks? Are there key course content areas that you could launch that would result in employment? And so you have to look at your local communities' unemployment figures, look at where those, you know, if they're rising, where they sit, and know that your workforce investment boards are really looking at reemployment or employment, and they're going to be, they are already and have and will continue to support programs that quickly get folks reemployed or employed. So what can we do in our field? Can we offer short-term, the 6-unit classes to get folks minimally qualified, courses on health and safety practices, quick courses for staff on using Zoom so they can, you know, reach out to families. You can kind of brainstorm on some of the quick types of content that would be needed in your own community, but again, have that list ready. We're going to see more of those kinds of pots of money coming down, and it's going to come out and say, oh, ideas are due Friday. We have $10,000. Do you need PPE? Do you need this to reopen? Give us a list, or due Wednesday and it's Tuesday. So they're going to be fast turnaround pots. Nothing, you know, I don't anticipate billions, but what we've heard that they're going to prioritize these kinds of requests. So I'm done, and now it's going to go to Rachel to move us to the next piece. And Renee, you'll be doing the Google Doc?
I think Rachel,
I'll be doing it.
Okay, great. So you can get it out.
I'll include the link to the Google Doc in the email that we send out after this meeting today. It will probably have to wait to go out till Monday as we collect those things to put into it, but we will get that information out to you. I was just putting in chat that maybe we need to, as part of the Google Doc, brainstorm what are things that people could think of that would be helpful to put on a list like that you could give to the college. And so we'll figure that out and add that to the Google Doc so we can start a brainstorming session so you can have that information that we'll send out again. Renee, were you going to?
Very quickly, I just want to make sure that I'm like kind of saying like what Kathleen just said, but just really a couple things. So for your spring schedule, please try to have 6-week versions or like fast track versions, or like, as if we run our programs in a traditional semester, I know we have to run some of it like that, but we have to have some other options where people can do the fast track training, because that 6 to 12 week window, the 12 week is the maximum. So how can we create a part of our program where our students can get 6 units within 12 weeks for spring? Because that's where you might be able to get funding. I also just want to really encourage everybody. When I was at College of the Canyons, I had experienced something that was really fantastic, and it just helped me so much as a professional to kind of think about proactive versus reactive planning. And for instance, we had this dream of having this outdoor space. And so we wanted to create an outdoor learning environment. So early on, we started planning it when we didn't have the funding. We got everything ready. So that way, whenever the day came that we went for the grant or some other extra pot of funds became available, we'd be able to roll. We had a situation where Supervisor Antonovich came to our campus at the beginning of June and said, we've got $350,000. Do you guys have a plan for how you can use it within your early childhood program? And literally within less than 24 hours, we're like, absolutely. Here's exactly how we can spend that out by June 30th. Okay. Now, I know we're not on the same deadlines right now, but have your $500 plan, your $1,000 plan, your $5,000 plan, and then like a $25,000 plan. So if at any moment somebody's got COVID related funding at any increment, you can go, oh, I'm good. I've already got it ready and ready to go. So here's exactly what my need list is. So I'm just really encouraging that proactive planning. Another thing too, I want to chime in about, Kathleen talked about the need for doing very specific trainings. Like we're going to have to train people on COVID and cleaning procedures and PPE equipment. And those could be 1/2 unit or 1 unit classes or workshops or run through like think about different ways you can do things, because we have a little bit longer that we're going to be in this kind of different model. So proactively have those lists ready to go. So that way, if a dean or a vice chancellor or whoever comes to you and says, we've got some money, you're the person raising their hand and you've got the plan and you're ready to roll that day. You're not saying, can you give me a week to talk to my department about it? If you ask for that, you will lose. You will lose out.
So I was just typing in chat, one of the things that we do is we'll schedule classes like the child growth and development, child family communities. We'll do those either 8 weeks back to back, or we'll do them concurrently. So a student could take those 2 classes in 8 weeks technically and get those 2 classes under their belt. Our semester is longer than most people's semesters, I think. And so we can do that next to each other, so they could spend the entire semester and get those 2 classes done instead of trying to do those in 18 weeks. And then the other quick little thought or question that we kind of didn't get to earlier today, because we were talking about so many other amazing things, is thinking about how do we build concepts like COVID and all the other issues that we're dealing with in the world. How do we build those into our coursework that's already existing? And that's another thing we want to think about, like child growth or child health and sorry, my tongue is tied. Health and safety class. How do we build in more of those practices? How do we really think about and reframe how we introduce that content? I know over the summer I was teaching principles and practices, and part of my last assignment I did was I had the students think in the form of advocacy, and I had them look at what is your position on schools reopening, because that was a very hot topic around that time. And as an educator, we should be advocates. So I wanted them to research and figure out what their position is on it. So it's now time to start thinking about what do you need to be supported by to be able to get that content into your classroom? I'm sure we're going to see a lot of trauma-informed care. What can we be doing to support you in thinking about how do you incorporate those in the classrooms? These could be future coffee chats that we could plan. We could look for guest speakers. We could work on trying to figure out what do you need to learn to be able to teach the students about COVID practices in classrooms. So if you have any suggestions, please go ahead and put them in the chat box, and we will look at planning maybe some more coffee chats around those over the next couple of months. And definitely racial justice is a huge topic that we also need to be exploring. I know at our college, we were throwing out all sorts of resources, and then we also had to take a step back for a second and say, okay, how do we see it pertinent in this class versus this class? How do we frame the context over here versus over here, so we're not having the same exact conversation? And so that's another thing that we've been doing at our college. Okay, so I am going to be turning it back over to Renee, and Renee is going to lead us now into the final section that Kim was going to take on, looking at talking about our first week of classes, and this is where we'll break into small groups.
Yes, and I also see in the chat, Katie just mentioned, Renee, are you concerned about not filling with children or students? I put in the chat, I'm just wondering if anybody's concerned about filling your lab school once it opens. Because the thing that I'm thinking about is there's all these alternative methods and things that are popping up. There's pods and there's this and so families are going to other sources now. So once we are open, are we going to have a challenge? And I don't know, I'm just throwing it out there because if we anticipate that we might, maybe we need to start thinking about marketing or how we're going to, you know what I mean? Like do an investment there to ensure that once we open in spring or whenever, that we open and we open full, because we need to keep our lab schools going. So the last thing we want is to open and not have our children there.
We had that problem. We were contemplating opening for the fall, but one of the roadblocks was when we contacted our families, only 2 were willing to return right now. And that's because, you know, Alameda County has really high numbers and, you know, all schools went remote, but still, that's a big concern. It was one of the reasons we postponed till spring so we could do marketing. Yeah, and this cat is gone cuckoo.
I love that, Michelle, because my cat is literally at my feet talking right now. I didn't even know she was in this room, and I'm like, you've got.
She's talking to my cat, probably.
I wanted to add one other topic that I forgot during my list, but we've seen, especially in our area, a proliferation of parents hiring staff that have been laid off. And so I did an article and I called them kind of the pandemic pod staff and the Zoom supervisors staff. Many of the families who, I mean, it's also an equity issue because who can afford to hire pandemic pod supervisors mean that some students are being left out and will fall further behind. But Zoom school supervisors, they are hiring folks who had been working in child development programs. Some are even hiring credentialed teachers that have chosen to not return. So we are setting up, in some ways we're going backwards, and we may want to think about, do we need to actually provide coursework that is tailored to people who want to work in these smaller pods? Exempt care providers, nannies, but now the job description has really bloomed, and it's, you know, you're supervising Zoom school, you're supervising several children, and as the world has shifted. And so if parents are not comfortable with returning to larger programs, does that mean we need to shift and provide some training to smaller, to people working in smaller groups, or more the informal care providers that I think we know are always there, but we don't always serve in terms of our academic coursework. So that's kind of another thing to think about. It is an employment issue. We do have students who are, you know, looking for jobs, and they're gonna find them.
And Kathleen, people have requested that we get that article. So if you send it to me, I can, if you're willing to share it, I'll send it out to, when I send out the email to everybody following up this meeting.
I'm finishing writing it today, and it should be out in a week or 2. So
okay, so we'll get it out as soon as Kathleen shares it.
I'll send it out.
You know, I was thinking about a lot of these suggestions, and this is where sometimes I think maybe I feel challenged as a planner, as a department coordinator, because I just wonder, it feels like when I want to offer some kind of new ideas, I'm often told like, well, we have to go through the curriculum process, so you can do that in a year and a half or whatever, when everything's approved. And so I think that we definitely have folks who are willing to say, I'm gonna, you know, do a training and I'll just do it, you know, as part of my job, but that only goes so far. And so I'm just really curious for people who have created such interesting, like, let's respond to the moment kinds of things outside of existing coursework, that is. How have you all done that? I mean, I don't know if we have time to talk about it today, but I'm really curious about that.
I'll speak very quickly. I was going to write it in the chat, Nadia. There's a difference between not for credit and non-credit. Non-credit has to go through your curriculum committee. But if you're talking about a short term, the community needs it right here and right now, that is a not for credit class. And so it doesn't have to go through that 1.5 to 2 years wait to go through curriculum committee. So if we're looking, and I haven't done that personally, I know that I've been looking into it for a couple of other things that we've been asked to create for our community, but I have not yet done that personally. But I know that that would be a way to be immediately responsive without that always the backlash. So that was my comment that I will now erase from what I was going to put in chat.
We have topical courses that are issues courses. So we have a topical course for teachers. It's a flex course for half unit, 1 unit, and a topical course for directors. And so the course outline covers some basic, things that have to be approved, but the subject areas are flexible. So you could have the topical course run and cover COVID changes in the teaching environment and just, add that content. So having something like an issues course, and then for a target population is something you could have approved ahead of time and then launch it as your subject area changes. And ours are approved. They're all of our courses are open source. So you could, I could send them. They're just issues courses.
Does anyone else have anything they'd like to say related to that? Okay, well, the last topic that we wanted to talk about today is we wanted to have some time to talk about, for those of you that have already started, we'd like to hear about any sort of like icebreakers, get to know yous, anything that worked, especially because we know some of us are starting next week. And then we also know that many of us in this group probably will be doing ongoing icebreakers and community building activities with our students. And so we want to hear about anything that rolled out, that really worked out in this virtual platform. Remember, we're looking at how do we humanize what we're doing in the virtual learning world, and what does that look like? So we'd love to have some of our colleagues talk for a few minutes.
Renee, we had it set up to go into breakout rooms so we can have some small group discussion.
Sorry about that. Yes, thank you.
So I have it ready to go. So Renee, I'll be there. Deanna will be there. Kathleen will be there. One of us will be there to help facilitate the conversation, but it is purely time for us to just kind of connect. So hold on to your virtual seats because we are about ready to move into a breakout room. We were told the best way to keep people enticed is by leaving them wanting more. So hopefully you were in your conversations waiting or talking and you just had to leave wanting more.
I said I'm going to try that in class. That was a good trick.
It's a theater trick. Our theater faculty suggested that. And I've done it several times to students and they're like, wait, I'm not done. I want to know.
Nice.
So did we want to take a minute to kind of check in what the groups had said and share out some of the interesting things we had talked about?
I think one of the most fascinating things with my group is just with the discussion, it just solidified that our students are hungry for connection right now. Whether you're in a synchronous or asynchronous format, they talked about offering some sort of like relaxing time where students could come together. Maybe it's a coffee chat, something outside of office hours, having office hours so you could still one-on-one and have those private conversations and students know that sacred time is there, but also having an informal time. And for those campuses that are being told that they need to be completely asynchronous, how can we still support them to offer these optional meeting moments so that way their administration understands that that's a best practice, and even if it's asynchronous, we still have these optional times where the group can come together. We had a lot, I mean, our group talked about a lot of different things. One thing though that I just want to mention was the idea of the pandemic workload. And I just want to throw it out there. I just want to think about sustainability. And I'm thinking personal sustainability. And I'm thinking this personally because I'm not teaching right now. And yet I still had 3 nights of meetings this week. And meetings that lasted till 8 o'clock at night, 9 o'clock at night. I've been doing Saturday meetings and, you know, and I'm trying to be responsive, and that's how I'm justifying it myself. But let's say we go into spring 21 in this format. How sustainable is it? And so I think we'll need to have some more discussions as educators as the semester goes on to think about what are we doing to replenish our souls and to make sure that, I mean, because we're modeling, we're not just like, I mean, we hold just a whole different level of responsibility with our students because they're not just looking at us to teach them the academic content. They're looking at us as models of educators who are balancing work and life and family and making it work. And we're successful because we've gone so far in our fields, you know? And so how do we mentor them in a way where we're also showing that grace and kindness to ourselves, and we're allowing students to see that. And maybe we're setting boundaries and we're being really tangible as we go on so students understand that, or I don't know what the answer is, but anyways, going back, lots of connectivity still needed.
Anyone else want to share out?
I do mindfulness. I've been doing it. I know we shared that a few weeks ago, but I tried it this week and I said, okay, guys, I know this is different on Canvas or on Zoom, but let's try it. And so I just had them put their hand on their heart and their belly and breathe. And they did really well. And then I did a check-in, but I'm going to do something like that, or even dance. I think I might, there's a couple songs that are really uplifting that have just come out for free. And I said, okay, so if I play music at the beginning, I might dance for a minute and encourage you all to get up and dance before we start. So I don't know, some things like that, some curriculum kinds of fun, blow off steam stuff.
Becky, I love that you mentioned the music and the dancing, because for anybody who's on the Distance Learning Educators Facebook site, I was so pleased that one of the educators said, I want to start all my classes off with really positive music. Here's the age of kids I'm working with. What kind of songs are appropriate to start my Zoom sessions off with? And it was fascinating to see people, you know, reminding us about Happy by Pharrell and Praise You, and these songs that really, you know, we can be heroes. Like, let's start off with that. You know?
Yeah.
Like, let's build it up and let's say, like, let's remind them the power of what we do. We change lives, you guys.
Or let's just every day sing for everybody's classes.
You what?
I used to sing in my classes all the time. I used to sing all the time because I wanted them to sing. So why wouldn't I be singing too? And dancing.
Yep.
Michael Fronte just came out with a song, was on the Today Show. And so that's kind of what got me thinking. So I recorded it, and then I started playing it in the morning throughout the summer. My adult children thought I was crazy, but he said, it's just a good way to start the day. But it's Michael Fronte, and it's I Got You. And it was during COVID, it came out, and he did it in the Bahamas with his family because they were stuck there. It is so good, you guys, about love and peace, and we got this. And I just, yeah. So when I'm having a bad day, I dance to it. But I'm gonna try that this next week with my students. So I'll let you know how that goes. Maybe they'll let me videotape them. Right?
Maybe we need a list of songs included on the website or something, you guys. Let's start putting it together. What's it called? The playlist.
A playlist. Okay, now can we do that legally? How does that work?
We just put a list of names of songs.
And you can do that because in Zoom it's your class, right? So it's not like I'm selling it or anything. So
you're not making money.
And share it out.
That idea.
You're not making money.
We're not, right. Okay. I just wanted to
share a little bit about what our group did. We did have someone that said they wanted something positive to send to students around virtual teaching. We know it's probably not developmentally appropriate. We know it's mostly negative, but there needs to be some positive messages so students don't feel like they're engaging in something that's just really bad and really wrong. So positive messages to send to students around, especially virtual practicum, working with children virtually, and just the whole situation we're in, some positivity. And then lots of requests around swivel training and tech training, Canvas Studio. And so maybe one topic that we can do, which would support ourselves, would be to have a tech share confab with some tech, both experts and also to share between ourselves around how folks are using technology. And then requests for resources, requests for specific kinds of resources, and then funding maybe for swivel and swivel training, funding for specific resources, and funding for the training. So lots of really practical ideas from our group.
Great.
And
maybe we can make that next coffee chat as a tech.
Yeah, but I wouldn't be the one to lead it because I'm teaching my first Canvas class this semester.
Well, we'll have like a place for people to just come and share tech, and I'll bring the swivel out and we'll have video and we'll swivel.
Yeah, we can swivel to music.
Yes.
And then some of us that have pivoted very quickly can share our trauma and.
Yes.
Yep, that sounds good.
Anybody else want to share out before we wrap it up?
I have to head off, but.
Okay.
Thank you, everybody.
I just put this in the chat. Before we go, you guys, we need to figure out one funding source to get Swivel for all of us. Swivel is not very expensive. And so who can we find? Which like philanthropist group can we go to? Can we go to Packard?
Who made Swivel? And where's the company?
It's a company called, I think they're called Swivel.
And where are they? They're probably in our region.
No, they're out in another state.
Oh, they are.
Let me reach out to them. I'll call them.
I think we go to the company.
Yeah, we'll go to the.
I think that's a great idea.
This is their COVID donation.
My foundation, I work with the local K-12 foundation, and we gave out distance learning mini grants this week, and we had halo lights. And so I said to the executive director, oh, how much do these cost? And she goes, normally they're $30 online, but I called the company and they gave all of these to us for $13 each. Wow. So we were able to order a couple hundred when we thought we were going to be, I mean, it like tripled our order by just calling the company. So let's see, let's do it. Let's
Rachel, will you ask Swivel if we can get free swivels?
I'll talk to them about that.
Maybe we could do some sort of advertising exchange or something.
I'll call my friends Bill and Melinda Gates and we'll figure out something.
Yeah. Okay.
So if there's nothing else really, really quickly, I am working on the teacher interviews. I actually have the first interview up, although I realize that there's some issue with the closed captioning, and so I'm going to need to figure that out. I have recorded 2 teachers. I've recorded interviews with them as well as touring their classrooms. I'm working with another couple of schools to do some recording, so those will be up on the ECE Collective. So if you get a chance, keep watching for that and share that website out with your friends. So If there's nothing else, I'm happy to hang out if you want to hang out for a few minutes. And thank you for being here today. Thank you for giving time, investing each other, investing in us. So thank you.
Thanks, everybody.
Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Rachel, I was just thinking, we didn't mention that our COP presentation got accepted to CCC AOE.
Oh,
so we'll need to do that at the next meeting. Yeah, so the COPs are coming out to the conference circuit.
Nice. We'll put that in the email that we send out.
Excellent, excellent. I hope it's okay, everybody. I'm going to log off because my son and daughter have a friend that are both coming to our backyard at 4 o'clock today. So I have to go sanitize some stuff so that way my 13-year-old's going to have some social time this afternoon.
Oh, no.
Okay?
Hang on, I got to take mine to social too.
Awesome. I love everybody.
I just